sure quite correctly said, if you weren't doing what you were doing, you would have had this a long time ago.
Yeah.
I don't go, oh, woe is me. I just keep doing it. I keep lifting and I keep doing it. And I'm not scared that I'm going to fall over and break my hip. It's just
Hmm.
like that could happen walking down the street just as much as it could in the gym. The perseverance to finish something that's really, really challenging. And know that you can come out of the other side and you've done the best you can. And I feel that's very helpful. It's kind of funny that it took me into my 60s before I was
Right.
able to apply this in my everyday life. But whatever. So better late than never.
Welcome to the CoachMD Podcast. I'm Dr. Charles Glassman, bringing you 3 decades of experience as a physician and a coach. Join us as we navigate the maze of medical advice with real-life stories, empowering you to take charge of your health. In our That Happens segment, guests share transformative experiences, reminding us that we're all human and not just patients. So get ready for a journey into healthcare reimagined, where empowerment and discovery pave the way. Hey, it's Dr. Charles, aka Coach MD. In my over 30 years of medical practice, I've made it my goal to help people create strong minds, healthy bodies, and unshakable spirits. And I'm so excited for the Coach MD podcast to have this CrossFit Masters series, and I'm focusing on athletes who are 60 years and over. Now, I know when I was a kid, 60 years, that was old. And I just turned 65 at the end of last year. And I mean, I can't even tell you what that meant to my mentality when I was a kid. I mean, that was really, really old. Well, I'm going to introduce my next guest on this series. And Lil Gary is a master's athlete in CrossFit, 60 plus. And we're not old, right, Lil?
That's right.
Yeah. I mean, we are you know, there's old and old is when you stop moving, really. And tell us a little bit about your fitness journey getting up to this point.
Yeah, sure. First of all, thank you for having me. This is great that you're doing this series, and thank you for blending, physical medicine and fitness because
Yeah.
hopefully one of these days doctors will actually prescribe fitness or CrossFit specifically because, like you said, it's so well rounded. So I was listening to your one of your previous guests, Jim, and similarly. I did absolutely nothing, but I did like to ski. And I would go maybe once a year, every couple of years, from my teens into whatever, 30s, 40s, something like that, very occasionally. But that was it. I did not do PE in school. I didn't like it. I have the worst hand to eye coordination, which continues to this day, but that's okay. We don't have to catch too much in CrossFit. And
Right.
uh, and so when I turned 50-ish, I remember thinking to myself, it's use it or lose it time. Something has to happen. And what happened was maybe a couple of years after that, sitting in the nail salon, I saw a brochure for we'll raise money for charity and we'll train you to run a marathon. One
Wow.
of those programs. It was for the Leukemia and Lymphoma Society. They have a great program called Team in Training. So I picked up the brochure and did absolutely nothing with it for about another 6 months. I started getting very bored with the training, the monotony. I'm not necessarily a 5 o'clock in the morning person. And when you train in Los Angeles for a marathon, if you're not up and out by 5, you're going to roast to death in the warm months. So long story short, between the monotony, and I actually got an overuse injury in my foot that became quite painful. And there were a couple of girls in this running team that had discovered the CrossFit regimen of workouts. And like we joke in CrossFit, the first rule of CrossFit is you never shut up talking about CrossFit. And they were like, and it piqued my interest. And I realized that there was a CrossFit gym literally a mile from my house that I had passed by 100 times on my way to wherever. And like many of them, they're they're not glamorous gyms. They're sometimes in an industrial park or a business park, and this one was one of those. And you couldn't see much from the outside except the name, and it was kind of mysterious. And then a few more weeks or probably months went by. I mean, this build up was it went on forever until I got the nerve up to call and ask, how do you join, or do you make an appointment, whatever. And I was, of course, invited to come on down and check it out, which I did. It was the only gym I even tried out. I didn't look for others. And to say that I was hooked from the first workout is an understatement. And there was something about just from the very first day, something about the community, something about the coaching, something about the being in the pain cave with everybody else.
Yeah.
That it just got me right away. And I did something for the first 6 months. They offered a program that I also think I heard you talk about with somebody they called it CrossFit Cardio. I called it CrossFit Life. It was not using the barbell. It was a similar workout of the day to what everybody else was doing, but no barbell. And it was simply because I wasn't saying, oh, I'll never use a barbell. It was just like, again, how could I ever figure that out? That would just be by this time I'm 61. I joined when I was 61, and that was almost 11 years ago. So I did that and loved it, and I loved the variety, and I loved as time went by seeing things on social media, which equates what you do in the gym to your everyday movements. Carrying bags of groceries, farmers carrying, putting your backpack in the overhead bin by yourself on the plane, is a push press, and on and on and on. I'm just like, wait, this is amazing.
Right. Yeah.
And, so that went on for the first 6 months, and then a couple of months into my next 6-month membership plan, I said, oh, this is ridiculous. I've got to check out these barbells. And by that time, the coaches knew me, I knew them. There were 1 or 2 members in the gym that were around my age, not too many. A lot of them were 20s and 30s and so on.
Yep.
And by that time, I had a little bit more understanding that, when I would see these people doing these movements, and I'm thinking to myself, oh my gosh, why can't I do that? And I realized that, what, I'm probably never going to do it exactly like them because I'm 3 times their age.
Right.
And it's never going to happen exactly like that woman over there or that person over there. And I became definitely very okay with that. Most of the coaches were good at suggesting modifications if something was beyond my skill set, a pull up or whatnot. And so then I tried the regular class, the CrossFit class with the lifting movements involved. And again, I just fell in love, and it was it's ever since.
I love it. Going back to when you turn 50, as you said, and you're gonna use it or lose it, having the mentality that you saw that inevitably you're going to age, and your body's going to deteriorate, and you decided to do something. You chose marathon training, and I think it's a lot of our mentality when we haven't exercised in the past and we look to start exercising, the first step that a lot of people take is get on the treadmill or start walking, maybe running, because that's the only we hear people hear the thing that you need to do aerobics for your heart and so you don't get a heart attack. And doctors also are very myopic in their recommendations. They'll say diet and exercise, but not really tell you what that looks like. And if you press
Yeah.
them, they'll say, oh, well, walk or maybe run. But most doctors don't know the holistic of that. So, but the way you approached the marathon training, I really wanted to talk about that first because I know that so many people listening are thinking about joining CrossFit when they're in their 50s or in their 60s. And even though it wasn't CrossFit that when you started, you made a determination that you were going to, uh, you felt badly, but you stuck with it. And it reminds me of when I was in medical school and I always wanted to do karate as a kid. I never did it, but I saw these flyers up in my karate in my medical school, and it was for advertised for karate class. And I remember the second semester of my first year, I checked it out, and it was a Tuesday night, or actually then I think it was a no, it was a Tuesday night. It was a Tuesday night, and I remember the next day I could barely walk, right? But I pushed myself and I went on that Thursday. And then I went on the next Tuesday and the next Thursday. And gradually, those muscles that I have, and I was only 21 years old. Then, getting fast forward 10 years, I also wanted to do a marathon. I was not a long distance runner in high school. I was a sprinter, actually. And I always used to look at the long distance runners. And when we used to do anything beyond a mile, I used to be winded. I'm talking in my teens, right? There was no way I thought I could do it. And so I got a book where this guy talked about running for time or whatever. So go out and run for 5 minutes, go out for run for 10 minutes,
Mhm.
whatever. So I remember it was 1990. Let's say I ran in 93. No, I ran in 92. So it was November 1991. Excuse me. It was the day of the marathon in 1991, New York Marathon. And I remember that day I went out and I ran for 10 minutes. That was it, 10 minutes. And I did that for a couple weeks. Then another couple weeks I'd run for maybe 12 minutes, whatever. And gradually it increased. And so I think it's really important. Kind of tell us a little bit of what that's like because we're going to talk about how that applies to not only your fitness now, but how you translate that into your life. If you can remember back in that training period.
Yeah, in the marathon training.
Yes, yes, yeah.
Yeah. The way that we were taught to manage to get through an entire 26.2 miles, um, there was a variety of ways offered, and everyone kind of got in the group got tested for like, were you an experienced runner? Were you going to walk, which some people did, uh, and what was your pace? And that was we were maybe the second or third week we had to run 1 mile and they timed us, and then based on that there was some suggestions made, and the suggestion for me was a run walk combination. It was 5 minutes of running and 1 minute of walking, and doing the entire marathon with those intervals.
Love it.
And it worked for me.
Yeah.
We had the watch with everything, beeping and whatnot,
Mhm.
set the watch for the whole time. And, you know, I wouldn't say I was religious to the 5-1 the entire time. Sometimes I ran usually a little shorter time and maybe walked a little longer time, but that was the basis. And it was so doable. And we were shown some examples of somebody who would run well, a lot, and then have to walk because they just got themselves totally winded, and they ended up being slower than somebody who did run walk the whole way.
Yeah.
But pacing myself, in other words, and
Right.
and it was great. That's what I did. That's what I did for that. And yeah, the last marathon I ever ran was New York, actually, in 2016.
Wow.
And yeah, I did the run walk intervals the whole time.
Wow. Love it. And we have a saying in CrossFit that slow is smooth,
Right?
smooth is fast. So that's a perfect example
Yeah.
of that. And, you know, breaking it down into those intervals. And, I was a math major in college, so I always thought about tangents and always tangents on the curve. So, just it's like points. So you go from one point to the next. And that's how I remember in a longer run, like a 20-mile run or whatever, at the end, we'd have had a hill, or whenever there was a hill, I'd always look to the point right in front of me and not at the end point, because
Yeah.
it freezes. And I've told this story before, and it comes from my karate training, where it's a parable. A 10-year-old boy goes to his sensei and he says, "Sensei, I want to be a black belt. How long is it going to take me?" And the sensei says, 10 years. He goes, 10 years? That's how old I am. That's my whole life. What if I train every single day and I put my heart into it and that's all I think about is karate? How long then will it take me? And he said, 20 years. He goes, 20 years. But what if I come into the dojo and I train with you and I'm by your side and I give up everything in my life and that's all I do? How long will it take? And he says, 30 years. It's 30 years. He goes, I don't understand. He says, son, if you have one eye on your goal, you have only one eye on the path in which to find the way. And so that's breaking things up into smaller intervals,
Oh,
into
yes.
smaller goals, instead of being blinded by that 26.2
Yes.
and being paralyzed by it. So you took that and you broke it down like you did, and you were able to finish it. And that's kind of what I did back in the day. I broke it down into smaller intervals until I got my endurance up. And then when I ran, I would always look, just in front of me. And that would be my focus and my concentration. You talked about now that you got injured doing the marathon. I'm not saying nobody gets injured in CrossFit because that's not true, but the just marathon running and why it's not a great recommendation for a fitness regimen. To me, running a marathon is more about the mental part of it, about the determination and really cultivating one's perseverance and internal strength,
Yeah.
right? Rather than so good for the body. Because as you run, as we get older, and as a woman, as a woman, as women who run, it actually is not good for bone density. It can put a lot of stress on the body, leading to stress fractures, contributing to osteoporosis, and it's not a well-rounded aerobic type of regimen. So, in your experience with CrossFit, if you could kind of explain to my audience what CrossFit aerobics basically looks like.
It's it's pretty much everything we do.
Right.
There's the combination of actual aerobics, like riding a bike or an air bike or rowing on the rower or actually running, not that far, as you know. In CrossFit, there's usually rarely more than perhaps 800 meters at most,
Mhm.
but you might do it 3 or 4 times in the workout, mixed up with other things. So that's the actual, pure aerobics, I suppose. And then after that, you might have some what CrossFit calls gymnastics. It's not what we see on TV with the Olympics by any means, but it could be jump rope, it could be pull-ups or some attempt at a pull-up, but whatever it is, our ability is, or using rings and pulling up that way on our rings. And then there's the actual, there's the barbell work or dumbbell work where And my heart rate gets up with every single one of those things, every
Yeah.
single one. But I have the variety that keeps me interested and keeps the challenge going for me much more than like I said, that the running. Yes, it's uh, that the boredom really set in for me. I'm a kind of person who's like, I think one of Coach Glassman's on his 100 fitness in 100 words, he says routine is the enemy, and I agree with that. That's kind of my lifestyle anyway. So
Yes.
that it appealed to me very much to walk into a class, be given some movements, being walked through a really thorough warm up, which in itself gets our heart rate up. I think in the earlier days, maybe that very first time after we did the warm up, and I think it included some push ups. And I have arthritis in my wrist, so like being in this position was like, oh, Of course, I couldn't do a strict pull up. I was on my knees and doing all the warm up movements, and then they're like, right now we're going to get ready for the workout. And I was like,
Right.
wait a minute, that wasn't the workout. I'm
Right.
exhausted. But even the warm up is a nice, cardio bump.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
so the joke in CrossFit, of course, is our warm up is other people's workout, right? And the Coach Glassman that Lil is referring to is Greg Glassman, the founder of CrossFit. No relation to me, but my namesake, I love it. I feel special to have that last name, especially in this industry, because in this fitness regimen, I monitor my heart rate. I'm 65 years old. What gets my heart rate up the most still is running. No, it does. I mean, my max heart rate, I can get it to 176, close to 180, which is very unusual for a 65-year-old. My resting heart rate has gone from the upper 50s to the low 50s, upper 40s. And that's not running marathons. That's maybe like Lil was saying, in a workout, we might run 400 meters, 800 meters, maybe once a year when we do the Murph. We might do a mile on each end of that workout. But you don't need to get to your maximum heart rate. I mean, you get into the aerobic area and all of the almost all of the exercises in a CrossFit WOD workout of the day will get your heart rate up. For me, that's into the 150s to 160s. Um, and that is, we're talking about, let's say, lifting weights, okay, or wall balls. So if we're doing thrusters, which is a weight squat and thrusting it over your head, or wall balls, taking a ball, squatting and thrusting it up to a target 9 or 10 feet on the wall, tell me about it. I mean, that gets your heart rate up amazing. And that is you're not only doing that boredom exercise of running, although you can get a runner's high and you could listen to music while you're running, you can jazz it up a little bit, but your your muscles are being challenged in different ways. You're contracting different muscles, you're relaxing other muscles, you're using your kinesthetics and your where you are in space, and all of those things go into building up muscle mass and bone density and gets blood flowing to the brain. So how do you see your involvement in this fitness regimen kind of going into your everyday life? You mentioned some of the functional elements of it. How do you see that in other areas, whether it be medical, or whether it be social, or whether it be just life, your view of life and energy wise? That you're 72 now, you said, or 71?
I'll be 72 in April. Yeah.
Yeah. So as a 70, almost 72-year-old woman, how do you see this in your life, in your lifestyle?
Yeah, I feel like I have something to say on all those aspects of it. Medical side of things. Um, I before I started CrossFit, and you know, you mentioned something interesting about running possibly exacerbating osteoporosis. Well, I've had osteopenia for years and years and years, and then a few years ago, sure enough, it turned into osteoporosis, and I believe a little bit of it is genetic because my sister's younger than me, and she had it way younger,
Hmm.
and I remember when I got that result, I was already, you know, very involved in CrossFit, and I got this phone call saying that the, the Healthy Bones Clinic. I said, "Oh, they must be calling me because they think I've got the bones of a 20-year-old, and they made a mistake with the test." And lo and behold, it was the complete opposite, and I was indignant. I was like, "What do you mean?" It was one of those "Don't you know who I am?" kind of thing,
Yeah.
and you know, my fitness activity is on file there at the HMO that I belong to, and I said, how do you explain this? I don't get it. And the you know, the person, I'm sure quite correctly said, if you weren't doing what you were doing, you would have had this a long time ago,
Yeah.
you know. And so I don't go, you know, oh, woe is me. I just keep doing it. I keep lifting and I keep doing it, and I'm not scared that I'm going to fall over and break my hip. It's just
Hmm.
like that could happen walking down the street just as much as it could in the gym. So I don't I don't baby myself. I don't do silly things, but I don't baby myself.
Hmm.
I just keep on, and I also, you know, I'm under medical regimen now for the osteoporosis. So, but in terms of everything else medically, I just think it's so beneficial. I just and mindset, it just kind of translates into that for me. I just have so much more. You know, it took me all these years in my life to just confidence and uh, just that the perseverance to finish something that's really challenging, and know that you can come out of the other side and you've done the best you can, and I feel that's very helpful. It's kind of funny that it took me into my 60s before I was
Right.
able to apply this in my everyday life, but you know, whatever. So better late than never. And I, in terms of social and community, I mean, yes, there's the gym and the members themselves, but in 2018, I decided to get a training certification, and I did,
Nice.
and so I got that in 2018, and I started practicing coaching a couple of friends, and I've now got this group of people, most of them a little older. I got a couple girls in their 40s, but and one guy in his 40s, and that's why, you know, this home gym that I'm showing off behind me,
I love it.
I I'm coaching, and the reward that I get from that and being able to share what I've learned with my peers is amazing. And there's a group of us, there's a group of us girls. We call ourselves the Odd Duck Club because we're all over 60 and we're lifting weights and loving it. And uh, so, you know, it's translated into my social life very much as well. I'm going to different events and so on.
That's great. And, you know, that's one of the biggest parts of getting older is maintaining relationships. And that's so vital as far as healthy aging goes. Um, Mind, body, and spirit. Again, all of those have to be in alignment for us to truly be appreciate life and to age well and to age gracefully. And one of the keys that this type of training does is when you mentioned about, you know, not being concerned about walking down the street and tripping and falling, this teaches you kind of not only your position in space, but it also helps with different muscle reactions. So one is able to right themselves much more quickly when they are involved in this kind of vigorous workouts. And so, for instance, jumping rope, right? You have to move your feet pretty quickly. You have to be agile. Jumping on a box, you know, you have to have those fast twitch muscles, be able to to contract very quickly when you're squatting, or lifting. So you're working different muscles, and also the some of the warm-ups that we do, and you're a trainer, which is great because it's one of the things that I never really did this kind of workout until my later 50s. And I always thought I was in great shape and I knew what to do, but my posture, my head was forward all the time. I didn't have engaged my back muscles correctly. I injured my elbow, in really no fault of my coaches or anything. I injured it in CrossFit because actually I was showing off once time, when I shouldn't have been showing off because I didn't have the muscles to show off in a sense. By injuring that elbow, I learned that my shoulder muscles, the posterior chain in my back was very weak. So we started, and actually now in our gym, the coaches are really very careful about this. Our warm up, we're using more bands, we're using more physical therapy type movements to make sure that those muscles are contracting, that we are activating those muscles. And you really can't minimize the power that has, that translating into our everyday life, right?
Yes. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Just yeah, like you said, being able to do those movements does help me and others from preventing a fall in the first place.
Yeah. Yeah. Now you have your own gym. Do you still participate in some of the CrossFit, competitions or anything?
Oh yes, yes. Yeah, and I also am a member of CrossFit Box. Just because to left to my own devices, I'm not in here as often as I ought to. So,
Right.
I can't coach myself.
Right.
So I do go. I do go to classes outside. And yes, I got also hooked on the competitive side of CrossFit really early on before I even knew what was going on. I'm sure maybe some of your viewers know about the competitive season, the open, which is
Yeah.
open to everybody to give it a try and do these particular workouts and gauge yourself against others, and which is coming up in the
Yep.
next few weeks. And then yeah, last year actually, I um, I'm still kind of pinching myself, but I ended up being one of the athletes in the trial 70 plus group
Wow.
that happened at the games. Yeah, they last year. I think that if the qualifiers would have been a smaller group, I wouldn't have qualified. But it was a larger group, and I did qualify, and I went for it. And I'm really proud of being able to do that because it helped pave the way. As you might know, this year for the first time, CrossFit has added a 70 plus age group to their leaderboard. When I started, probably when you started, it stopped at 55 plus, and then
Yes.
as as either older people are coming into it for the first time, or the younger pros are aging up, and now they're going into the older age groups, and it went from 55 to, then it was 60 to 64, and then 65 plus, and now eventually, yay, there's a 70 plus age group. And this year, I don't know. I actually asked somebody if they're good at statistics, but this year so far, and the Open doesn't start for another couple of weeks, there's already 250 women, over
Wow.
250
Oh, I
women
love it. Wow.
registered, and about the same number of men. I don't know last year when we were lumped in with a 65 plus if there was less or more, but I think for those who do have a slightly competitive spirit in them, it's good to have added that, because now a person might go, well, at least now I have a chance because I'm going to be measured only with people in my own age group. Somebody who's 72 competing against somebody who's 65, as I'm sure you know, it seems that as we get older, the 5-year age group from 35 to 39, oh, maybe not so much, but by the time it gets to 65
Yes.
to 70, oh boy, it's a huge difference, the decline and whatnot. So I think it's
Yeah.
fantastic that CrossFit has done that.
Yeah, and I think it's a great market that CrossFit, hopefully will start targeting is
Yeah.
really the baby boomers. I mean,
Yeah.
there's more baby boomers than there are Gen X or whatever. I mean, and and a lot of people they think of CrossFit, they think of these, you know, bruisers and
Yeah.
both men and women bruisers.
Yeah.
I mean, like these women are so strong. I mean, I can't, these young women, I mean, if when you go to a workout of the day and they put an RX and RX plus, that's it. And you have a men's weight and a women's weight. Well, I look at the women's weight and I say, I can't do that because this is for women who are in their 20s or 30s. Most women in their 20s and 30s can't do it. The CrossFit women can do it, but most other women are not going to be able to do that. And forget the men also. So it's, I know our gym added a fitness tier,
Yeah.
and which I like. And I think even further, they should, all the gyms should start having a master's,
Yep.
and if, because I think that will attract many more participants
Yes.
because there are so many, and we really need, um, you're not going to get the direction from your doctor. I just want to tell my audience, your doctor is not going to be able to guide you or coach you through a fitness regimen. People like Lil, a, and a CrossFit coach who's trained, is going to be able to look at you and be able to help you with physical strength, with your aerobic capacity, just more so than any medical professional that I've come across anyway.
Yeah. It does seem that CrossFit is making strides. You probably know better than me about, you know, interacting with the medical community. They've got some CrossFit
Yes.
Health or something. They've got some special seminars or whatnot for medical providers, and I think that's amazing.
Yes.
I hope it grows.
Yeah, me too. Yeah. So, Lil, I'm really happy that you came on today and shared your experience. And good luck in the Open, of course.
Thank
I'll be
you so much. Thank
participating.
you if you're
Thank you.
participating.
Looking forward to. I'm 65 plus this year, so I don't know if it'll make a difference, but honestly, I'm at the point where I just want to do it. I love the camaraderie.
Yeah.
I'm going to as we all do, work really hard in it, and have fun, and and know that again, slow is smooth, smooth is fast. So, but before we end, I have a this or that for you, and
Oh,
the rapid fire questions.
oh boy. Okay.
Okay, but this or that, thrusters or burpees,
Ah, burpees.
assault bike or rower.
Rower.
Right. I just did the assault bike today, and I choose the rower also. Deadlift or back squats?
Oh, deadlift. All the way.
Power snatch or clean and jerk?
Harrison.
Wall balls or devil's press?
Oh. Can I pause on that one?
Right, I know. Neither one.
I actually devil's press.
Okay, very good. Well, again, Lil, thanks again so much for coming on the CoachMD podcast and this CrossFit Masters series. And thank everyone for joining us today. And until next time, I'm Dr. Charles, aka CoachMD, urging you to stay strong in mind, in body, and especially right here in soul. Bye for now.